Okay, so just recently I had a really crazy, trippy mushroom experience, and it totally changed my whole outlook on life and just how I am and who I am as a person. And yeah, and that just got rid of my sociopathy. Uh, I'm not a sociopath anymore.
Do you want to clarify what your position on firearms ownership is? Do you believe that someone who has hallucinations of the kind you describe yourself, including auditory hallucinations, quote unquote, hearing voices that are not there, having a paranoid and aggressive reaction to strangers with the specific delusion that people are trying to kill you when they just say hello to you or shake hands with you, etc., do you think that sort of person should be allowed to own, use, and carry firearms?
Yeah, I've admitted to being a sociopath before in at least one of my videos, and in the comment section, I've admitted to it. On the Vegan Revolution podcast, I've even said I'm a sociopath.
If I describe that person to you as someone other than yourself, would you agree with the statement, quote, the government is justified in doubting their responsibility to safely use firearms, close quote?
Yeah, that shroom experience just totally fucking changed me, and I'm just a better person now.
We got two closely related questions here. Did Vegan Gains win? In a perfect world, should he win? Should he have won? Would the world be a better place if Vegan Gains got to play the role of super victim and advocate for freedom of speech, crying that YouTube unfairly punished him when he is just an innocent science education channel? And then at the same time, he can turn around and claim that my channel, which obviously has no claim to being of educational value whatsoever, right? That my channel is guilty of exactly the crime he was just accused of, and that I should be shut down and censored on that same basis. There are many, many strange ironies built into this situation, and I've gotten to see with the avalanche of hate mail that Vegan Gains has managed to attract and retain an audience so stupid that they are really not getting the irony. Okay, so hashtag spoilers. Did Vegan Gains win? No, he didn't. For those of you who do not understand the hierarchy of censorship here on YouTube, really simply, the optimal level of not being censored, the apex of freedom of speech here on YouTube, is to have your videos monetized. So monetized doesn't just mean that you're making money. You're not being censored at all, and if anything, your content is actually being encouraged here on YouTube. Okay? The level below that is being demonetized. This means you're kind of semi-censored and you're being discouraged from promoting this kind of content on YouTube, and obviously you're not making any money. Now, my channel, of course, it would be ridiculous to think I'm motivated by money. All the time I take on topics that are controversial enough that I know they will be demonetized, but criticizing Richard did not fall into this category. Okay? And then below that, there are several levels of actual censorship, and I've talked about that in the past. You can get channel strikes, you can get specific videos deleted, you can also get a kind of warning email from YouTube. They used to do that more in the past. It's actually changed. They've switched up their gambit now, where they spell out what the complaint is against you and this kind of thing. So then we get into the realm of actual censorship. And what happened with Vegan Gains and his declared campaign to get my videos deleted, get my channel shut down, all the threats he made against me? He lost. So this is a list of the recent videos I made harshly criticizing Vegan Gains, and in some cases satirizing Vegan Gains. Some of these are criticism, some of them are satire. Every single one has the green money symbol next to it, and that means that they are still monetized. They are not censored by YouTube in any way whatsoever. Now, why do I say Vegan Gains had a campaign against me to get these videos flagged? Because he told me that. He told me he was going to attempt to get my videos censored and get my channel shut down in email, and we assume that he's a man of his word. Now, beyond that, of course it's possible that he has fans who did the same thing without him directing them. That always happens. Back when Durian Rider was mad at my channel got attacked by Durian Rider supporters, Durian Rider fans. So anyone can flag and report a video as being harassment or having something immoral about it. And the very first step of how YouTube responds to that is by demonetizing the video, and then you appeal the demonetization, and then only at that stage does a human being at YouTube headquarters look at the video and consider it on its merits. Should this be censored, semi-censored? What level of censorship should be applied here? And every single one of these, I won, and Vegan Gains lost. Okay? Now, you may say correctly, oh, but Eisel, you had more videos than this. Like, you can't fit them all on one screen here. There were more videos of yours. You're right. So here's page 2. And there you go. Those also all have the green money sign next to them. Okay? So this was a completely one-sided dispute at the level of YouTube evaluating the validity of his complaints against me. Really briefly, you guys can go back and read what Richard's own emails say, but I've got here a summary on screen. What Vegan Gains said to me is, 1, that my channel is telling lies about him. And when I asked him to give me an example, Richard, I'm not lying about you, but it could be I'm incorrect about something. So what's incorrect? What am I lying about? He has never sent even one example. So I have to stand by that at this point, and I have to take his silence at this stage of the discussion as a tacit admission that no, I'm not telling lies about Richard. Of course we have differences of opinion. That's why this discussion is happening, but that's also part of why YouTube exists and part of why we have free speech legislation in the first place. 2, he claimed that I had made criminal allegations against him that would put him in jail or result in the authorities searching his house. Now, again, this was really laughable because he was playing the victim and exaggerating to a ludicrous extent, but it's also simply not true. He only had one example of this, and that one example is false.
Somebody was talking about how I had a stash of illegal weapons. That's not true at all. I made a video actually getting weapons back from the police after they wrongfully charged me of a few things. So, yeah,
yes, everything was given back.
Yeah, so that's totally false.
And all the guns you saw in his videos were just
they're BB guns.
Yeah,
they're fake.
BB guns. They were props. They weren't real. They may have looked real, but they weren't.
I pointed out that, if you actually watch precisely what he says, he's not reassuring you that he doesn't intend to own guns in the future, saying that they were toys and they were fake. Well, the knives are not fake, the assault batons are not fake, the swords are not fake. There were a lot of weapons there that were real weapons. And he's also not telling us that in future he's not going to own real firearms. But number 3 here, he wrote in to clarify that he's currently on probation. So right now, he can't own real guns or real firearms.
Getting weapons back from the police after they wrongfully charged me.
Did you guys know that? Everything I've heard from Vegan Gains, he always presents himself as being completely vindicated by the courts, that he was unjustly persecuted. He plays the part of the super victim. He again and again suggests that this inquiry into his mental health, his being evaluated by a psychiatrist or psychologist, I don't know which, and his having an MRI scan, a brain scan, that this completely vindicates him, that there was no there was no justifiable reason to impugn his sanity. Well, I haven't seen the opinion of the court on that. I haven't seen the opinion of the psychiatrist. None of us have seen those documents. And he presents himself as being fully vindicated. But okay, if you're on probation that restricts you from owning weapons, that suggests to me already, Richard, that you are giving a very one-sided and dishonest account of that story. And here's the leap of inference. Therefore, he's going to get my channel deleted by flagging my videos and reporting me to YouTube. As stated, that has not worked. He didn't win. He lost. 2, he will ask his network to do the same. I found that hilarious. He's a member of a multi-channel network. Those are normally castigated for being scams and so on. Then number 3, if this doesn't work, he will sue me. And it didn't work. So guys, this comes back to the more interesting question of the principle of the thing. In this discourse I've had with Vegan Gains, what he's doing is harassment. Sending someone an email saying, I'm going to get your channel deleted, I'm going to sue you, and all this stuff. The threats, the bullying, this is everything that YouTube policy is supposed to discourage. And if you guys have been through the process, if you have a channel yourself, you know one of the first things they insist on is they ask you, have you tried to resolve this peacefully by writing to the person? And by the way, guys, I have resolved disputes that way. I remember there was a guy who had a video, and the title of the video was accusing me of being a pedophile. And I sent a message and said, look, Really think about what you're saying here. Now, guess what? I'm not a pedophile, but and the guy changed the title. And the rest of the video stayed up. I don't remember the video being that bad, but the title is like, look, people put my name into Google and they can see this and really think about what you're doing here and giving the video that title. So you can write to people. And I didn't, I'm not threatening to sue him and whatever. You can try to, solve these problems man to man. And that is what YouTube tries to encourage. So really briefly though, my critique of him, I'm saying that his content is of poor quality. The single most controversial element of this discourse, I'm claiming that playing video games is a waste of time for a grown adult. Shocking. Just imagine. I'm saying that you can do more meaningful things with your life. You can do more meaningful things with your channel. Richard specifically has had the opportunity of a lifetime handed to him in relation to the vegan movement, in relation to getting a real education in science and nutrition if he wanted to. He has a lot of opportunities sitting there in the greater Toronto area. And from my perspective, he's throwing all of them away. And Richard has said to me in the written comments that he now instead aspires to be like Ninja. If you don't know, the name Ninja is a stage name for a professional video game player. Is playing video games a meaningful use of your time? Is it for Richard? Is it for Ninja? Is it for someone who says they're an aspiring vegan activist and leader in the movement? Is it for somebody, with Richard's interests? And, this is a conversation we can have. And people in the audience, I got a ton of fan mail. I got a ton of emails from people. You remember that. Email, comments on Twitter, through other media, whatever. People writing to me saying, I remember one guy said, look, man, he owned a collection of classic video game consoles, and he said that nostalgia was part of him, but having watched my recent videos and discussions, he really reconsidered how many hours per week he should be doing this. Again, the problem not being owning the video game consoles, the problem being time and what you're doing with your life, and having the aspiration to make the world a better place, having the aspiration through your self-discipline, education, etc., to become a better person. That's a discussion worth having, and guess what? YouTube doesn't regard that as harassment. YouTube doesn't regard that as bullying. YouTube regards a lot of what Richard does as harassment and bullying, not just in your videos, Richard, in your written comments. And we all know you went back and manually deleted all the written comments you left on my channel. And that's probably why, because you've just lately had YouTube explain to you the real meaning of harassment and bullying. Number 4 on the list, I think his claims to being a man of science are on a really shaky basis. This came up pretty briefly in the videos, but I was saying, okay, this guy diagnosed himself as a sociopath and a psychopath, and he then considered himself to have cured his condition by using illegal hallucinogenic mushrooms.
Yeah, I've admitted to being a sociopath before in at least one of my videos, and in the comment section, I've admitted to it. On the Vegan Revolution podcast, I've even said I'm a sociopath. Okay, so just recently I had a really crazy, trippy mushroom experience, and it totally changed my whole outlook on life and just how I am and who I am as a person. And and that just got rid of my sociopathy. I'm not a sociopath anymore. I can actually feel for other people now. When I see someone get hurt, I can actually feel bad for them. Yeah, I don't have that intense hatred in me anymore, and that's pretty amazing. Yeah, that shroom experience just totally fucking changed me, and I'm just a better person now.
This guy's claims to representing a high standard of scientific scrutiny. There were other examples I mentioned where he tried to interpret a coroner's report, and he really couldn't do that. I'm not claiming that's easy. But the role he has taken on and the justification for his channel, and he himself says he apologized, some of his content is garbage or some of it is offensive or is, dark and edgy humor. He did do a kind of blanket apology. Well, what's the other side of that, Richard? You could have taken seriously, instead of playing video games, that this was an opportunity for you to step up and get some real credentials in any one of the medical or nutritional sciences, or even in, sports nutrition, bodybuilding, training, whatever, which not my personal interest. And then number 5, as everyone knows, he is self-diagnosed as insane. Said this 100 times. I appreciate his honesty, but if you just put together the really serious mental problems he describes himself as having and struggling with, I sympathize with the struggle. I appreciate that he came on the internet and talked about it. Those are really grave warnings, and we're going to come back to that briefly towards the end of the video. His reply, and again, this is my point, guys. This is why I'm not being censored by YouTube, and Richard is. His reply, his main point, was again and again that I'm lying about my penis size. This is like the main thing he had to say back to me, okay? It's not a defense of playing video games, what have you. He called me racist. He called me homophobic. He threatened to shut down and censor the channel because I dared to criticize him. He presents himself as a victim of YouTube who did nothing wrong. He presents himself as a super victim who's just trying to protect his wife and family because supposedly my critique of him on YouTube would place his life in danger. He actually said that. It's ridiculous. Richard, just have the detachment. This is like the inverse of the golden rule. The golden rule is do unto others as you'd have them do unto you. The flip side of that is, how would you regard this if it were someone else doing it to you? If somebody else did this to you, Richard, you'd regard them as really dishonest and dishonorable. This would cut against your own moral code, which does, in his own words, center around freedom of speech, especially when it comes to satire, so on and so forth. Okay? This is the final email I sent to Richard. It's on my blog. It was posted to my blog several days after I sent it to him when it seemed clear that he was not going to reply. And I said, Richard, okay, so I'll make a video proceeding with your statement that 1, you do not currently own real firearms because the police do not allow you to under the terms of your probation. 2, correct me if I'm wrong, but you have lied and you continue to lie in claiming that you do not own any real weapons. You claim that all of your weapons are quote-unquote fake and quote-unquote toys because the knives, assault batons, swords, etc. are indeed real weapons. 3, you still want to own guns in the future as soon as you are allowed to do so legally. Is this correct? Do you want to clarify what your position on firearms ownership is? Do you believe that someone who has hallucinations of the kind you describe yourself, including auditory hallucinations, quote-unquote hearing voices that are not there, having a paranoid and aggressive reaction to strangers with the specific delusion that people are trying to kill you when they just say hello to you or shake hands with you, etc., do you think that sort of person should be allowed to own, use, and carry firearms? If I describe that person to you as someone other than yourself, would you agree with the statement, quote, the government is justified in doubting their responsibility to safely use firearms, close quote? Do you think that the military would be willing to recruit or employ someone with this list of symptoms and to trust them to use guns responsibly in a high-pressure situation? Would you not agree that someone who had your checklist of symptoms might be disqualified from owning or carrying firearms in at least some democratic countries? Richard, when people write into me saying he should be on psychiatric medication, I write back saying, no, he should just take a vow that he's not going to do any of these things again. You say that you're a changed man. What you're showing me is that you haven't changed. You presented yourself as a victim of censorship. You then become a hypocrite the moment it suits you. Quote unquote, you're putting me and my wife in danger, as if this were any more true of you than, for example, a bodybuilder claiming that his life is in danger if his apartment is searched for illegal drugs because you've accused him of using illegal drugs. Richard, you have just been morally grandstanding about the rights of free speech, critique, and satire, and then the moment it's convenient for you, you do everything in your power to, quote-unquote, oppress someone else while continuing to play the victim card. You know that I could make a telephone call to the Toronto police today with no difficulty and simply express my concerns about you, and that would more likely entail problems for you and your parole officer. I didn't do that. I engaged in exactly the kind of rational, philosophical discussion about ethics on YouTube that you claim to support and defend, but not when it questions your own most sacred value, namely, wasting time playing video games. Newspapers make criminal allegations all the time. It's part of journalism. If a newspaper says, the alleged bank robber, that's an allegation. It is reporting an allegation. The etymology of the two words is clear. In Canada, telling the truth is always a defense against defamation. I have been telling the truth. You have completely failed to provide even one example of me, 1, lying, or 2, making a criminal allegation against you. However, yes, for example, you have openly talked about using illegal drugs, for example, hallucinogenic mushrooms, on your YouTube channel. So if I report that you've used illegal drugs, then I am making an allegation in the same sense that a newspaper is, simply in reporting the facts. That doesn't mean I'm doing anything wrong. Talking about a criminal allegation is one of the most important parts of protected freedom of speech. There are legal consequences for making reckless and irresponsible criminal allegations, but that's not what I've done in my videos. You are the one who has made irresponsible criminal allegations, accusing Durian Ryder of rape, although this is certainly not the only example, and you have been callous and cruel toward others when doing so. Richard, you've been a complete hypocrite here. You've become everything you always said you despised. You are, 1, playing the victim, and 2, at the same time, you're really engaging in bullying and harassment yourself. Quote unquote, I'll shut down your channel, I'll sue you, in response to legitimate criticism and satire. Really think with some detachment and objectivity about the contrast between the criticism and satire I've directed at you and the criticism and satire you've directed at so many other people. Even think about the difference between the criticism I've directed at you and your replies to me, just insulting me basically. The golden rule will be pretty easy for you to apply here, Richard. Why can't you act toward me the same way you'd want others to act toward you?